Again, let me just run by you. We have the FA Cup. It's in the studio, and this morning we've been sleeping with it. Well, literally. But we're also here to do a lot more discussions on AM Talk. My guest for the morning is Obi Amwa. Osebun Swamwa is a member of parliament for Okuapem South, but also chairman of Parliament's Subsidiary Legislation Committee. And we're here to talk on the main issues. We know that over the last 12 hours, what has dominated the mainstream as well as social and other sections of the media is the subject of those disqualified aspiring presidential candidates. It just didn't go well for them. The Electoral Commission has now formally announced that because of some administrative errors in filling their nomination forms as well as some other processes, they have been subsequently disqualified. But thanks for joining me this morning. How are you?
Thank you.
And I know you love sports a lot.
Yes.
And you love football.
Yes.
What do you make of us having the FA Cup?
It's exciting, very historic.
Which other team do you support in England?
Mighty Liverpool. You never walk alone.
Oh, but that's cool in Nkrumah's time.
Yes, I'm old school, and we're doing very well under Klopp. So
well,
don't just
don't remind me of my woes as a Chelsea fan.
Certainly.
All right.
You've already suffered under us.
Yes.
So don't say that it's an old team. Of course, it's an old team, but
well, true. Any memories of the FA Cup you want to tell us, maybe from your younger years?
Well, it's just what's most interesting about the FA is that that is where you have the giant killers. You have very small outlandish teams conquering the mighty ones. So it's always exciting. So you can never tell who will get to the finals and probably who even left the trophy. So some teams are consistent. Arsenal is very consistent when it comes to FA. But you have the smaller teams coming in and always to create surprises. And the format they use is also interesting. Depending on where the draw goes, you play home first. And then if there's no winner, you go away, and then eventually you play penalties. So it's a long journey, and it brings out all the excitement and anything that you can think of. It's prestigious enough, and I believe every team, club worth its salt, aims to capture FA trophy.
And in English football, they're always getting ahead of many of the football leagues and administrations around the world. It used to be the EPL or the Cup itself, the English Premiership going round. It's been to Ghana several times, and now they have the FA Cup.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That the brand, they've made the brand so attractive that we sit in Ghana here and talk about English FA, whereas probably most people even don't follow what's happening in Ghana.
I love Asante Kotoko though.
I used to be a Kotoko fan until I became a Blasters fan.
Okay, yeah. You're more patriotic than I am.
Growing up, I've become more of a national team person than a club level. But that is the brand, because I always say that when we were growing up, we used to love Ghanaian teams. My father would take me to the stadium to go and watch Kotoko playing. We could tell the lineup right from beginning who was imposed, either from Robert Mensah days to Joe Carr days and to all the big names. And now my young son knows so much about European football, but very little about football in Ghana, which is very sad, because of even this PlayStation.
Yes, PlayStation.
Yeah, he can tell you which player has moved to where, the history of every player, and then how they fare. He is a Man U fan, of course, because he's a modern young guy. I'm Liverpool because I'm old school. But they know everything in Europe, whether it's Barca or Real Madrid.
Information is a lot more closer.
It's a brand. So bringing this here, they want more people to be following what is happening. It's something that we need to do here. But it's apart from that, it's big business. It's not just for the fun of it. It's big business. If you look, if you see how many people who tune in to watch the English League and the FA Cup, even the smaller ones like Carling Cup and all those things.
That's the League Cup.
The League Cup. You show that they know how to market themselves and how to make money from all of us. But here, we still appear not to be too serious about sports and business and something. That's something that we will talk about at the appropriate time.
Okay, now let's talk about the Electoral Commission. Its announcement that subsequently about 13 of those individuals out of the lot who had filed their nominations to become aspiring presidential candidates apparently have not been qualified or accepted, and so they've been disqualified. What do you make of the whole process and the announcements in itself?
Well, it's a big surprise, shocking to some extent, shocking in only one aspect, but not too shocking in some other aspects. There are some parties which appear to be very serious parties. I take PPP any day as a serious party. I interact with them. We go to IPAC. I know how they have structured it. Last time the EC even did their survey. Apart from MPP and NDC, PPP had the most offices across the country. So I take them as a very serious party. And of course, there are some parties, we see that they are just on the fringes. They're just making noise. They don't seem to have even the right organization and structure, which is even contrary to the constitution. Unfortunately, the EC tends to accept all these parties. So when it comes to those who are not too serious, if the EC tells us that they haven't met the requirement, I don't get too surprised. But the very serious ones, I get surprised. I get surprised in the sense that it means they still lack something that they should be doing. And elsewhere, the leaders of these parties should resign. Elsewhere, they would have resigned. If you're a general secretary, a chairman of a party, and you get to your party...
Because they did do right by the president.
If you look at the reasons for disqualification, you can put them in various categories. There are some which are plain errors. Those plain errors, I don't know whether they were given the opportunity to even correct those errors. There are some too which are illegal and unconstitutional. For instance, if you bring a running mate and you state that your date of birth is 1998, obviously you don't qualify to be a running mate, because to be a running mate you should be 40 or above. You should qualify as a member of parliament.
Shouldn't that have been considered as a mistake?
That's what I'm saying, that if you bring that, I mean, how do I say that this is my date of birth? I'm going to fill a form, and I go and fill a form which shows plainly that I don't qualify. Then I come back to say it's a mistake. Where is your birth certificate? You go and swear affidavit. I don't think we should countenance some of these things. So for errors like filling your voter ID card number, maybe the biggest, you leave one out. You should be able to draw your attention to it that we've checked. Your number appears to be what you have filled, but you left one digit out. Come and correct it. That should be very easy. And probably if it's within the nomination period, all the better. If it's outside nomination period, then I don't know what they will invoke to be able to correct it. Then, of course, there are the illegal ones like what I've mentioned. If you don't qualify under the Constitution, you don't qualify. And then the fraudulent ones, where the law says you don't endorse more than one candidate, you go ahead to do more than one. Let's say that you don't know the law. But even in doing it, you change your details. That makes it fraudulent.
That smacks of some impropriety.
Impropriety, fraudulent thing. And obviously those things, they will lead to disqualification. I'm saying that we have to be more organized. So for instance, for the PPP, how did they go about it? I can tell you that for the MPP, when it came to a presidential candidate, because the requirement says 2 persons per district, means it's 216 districts times 2. We're talking about 432 persons to endorse. Beyond that, because we wanted to be so sure and certain, for my district, for instance, is the chairman of the party and the candidate. So the two of us endorse our presidential candidate. And even that,
strictly by that nomination, yes, in terms
so that you know that these are very high people, credible people who are endorsing the candidate, and most likely they will not go wrong. Okay. Even beyond that, they will have to check, the party checks in the system, the electronic system, whether your particulars are okay for you to fill the form.
Well, we have on the line Pa Ko Akon. He's a communications director for the Progressive People's Party. A very good morning to you. Now, particularly when we're told by the Electoral Commission that these or the disqualification of your candidates were due to some basic anomalies, it also calls into question your ability to be able to scrutinize the forms in themselves before trying to submit to the Electoral Commission. Paco.
Well, Roland, first of all, let me say good morning to your cherished viewers and thank you for the opportunity. It's unfortunate that we are still mourning this Ivaloku, and as you may be aware, a state of mourning, 3 days state of mourning have been declared for Ms. Ivaloku. So we don't want to do a lot of politics, but it's quite unfortunate that this incident has come our way, and it has become prudent for us to also respond to the issues. First of all, let me say that we all got to know about this issue yesterday when we were preparing for our national committee meeting, and it came as a surprise because as far as we are concerned, the necessary due diligence was put in place. In fact, in 2012, for example, I was the national coordinator for this exercise, and we ensured that all the right signatures were put on the form. This has come as a surprise to us because the one who coordinated it this time around, he actually trained me on the job, and it is difficult for us to comment at this stage because as of yesterday when we sent party officials to the EC office to verify things for themselves. Unfortunately, as at 4 p.m. when they got there, the EC had closed its offices, and so we did not get any facts from there. What we are relying on today is just the news we have all heard in the media. But today, the party will send a delegation to the place to check things for themselves, because we can't just rely on what the media is saying as proof of what of the allegation or the claim the EC is making. And so when we get hold of the document which the EC claims Richard Afida signed for Central and Western region, then we can make a decision on the issue. But as it stands now, we are just relying on what the media has published.
From the time that, as a party, you submitted the forms, did the Electoral Commission get back to you as to whether they've detected any anomalies on the forms and for which you perhaps needed a certain recall and do some corrections?
You see, Roland, that is the most unfortunate aspect of this issue. In fact, on that Friday, which is 30th September, I was even at the party office, and we were putting a lot of pressure on our national secretary to check. He went there twice, and they said they will get back to us. And so for Madame Charlotte Osei to go on radio yesterday to make this public statement, it comes as a surprise, because we're not given the opportunity. They never got back to us. They never did that. And so, I mean, this whole thing is so confusing, and we are struggling to understand how this thing could be done without our knowledge.
Okay. What if it comes out that there's a possibility that, true to word, what the Electoral Commission has said, that at least for one of the offenses, we had one person signing as a representative for two other regions? That should be a gross mistake as it can be.
Well, but that is why I mean, I've always said that this e-system is not final examination. That is why in the law, if you read Regulation 9 of CR 94, it is abundantly clear that you are to notify the candidate if you find some anomaly. I mean, what is the essence of this whole thing? It is public service. But if we want to take this thing as a final examination, and so if there is error, we will not notify you, we'll keep it to ourselves and make a public declaration, then you are not helping us to deepen our multi-party democracy. That is how I see this. It is as if somebody wants to revenge, fight back. So let me keep this to myself and throw it at them. Surprisingly, it doesn't help anybody.
Okay. Do you have any action you intend taking thereafter?
Well, the party will meet over this issue. As you may be aware, last night our national chairman addressed the press and made them aware that this issue is news to us and we get to the bottom of it. So today, some delegation from the headquarters will be sent to the EC office.
Okay.
To look for that document which they are claiming was signed by Aseda Richard, who unfortunately signed, as they claim, signed for Central and Western region. We need that document to also check, because the people who signed, they are not dead. Thankfully, all of them are alive.
All right, thank you very much, Papako Akon, the communication director for the PPP. And already we know it's been announced in the media that some political parties have threatened a court action. But what really does the procedure say, and as to whether the Electoral Commission needs to get back to you or recourse to this?
Well, when it comes to nomination of candidates, you first see the Constitution. And it's in PNGC Law 284, Representation of the People's Act. And it's then in CI 94, which is the regulations on elections. Now, if you look at Regulation 9, 9.2, which everybody is referring to, 9.2 is a bit interesting, in the sense that it says the returning officer shall inform a candidate that the candidate's nomination is invalid, where the particulars of the candidate or the persons subscribing to the nomination paper are not as required by law, or the nomination paper is not subscribed to as required by law, and shall give the candidate an opportunity to make amendments or any alteration necessary within the stipulated nomination period. Now, if you stipulate 2 days as days for nomination, and then there are any errors that you want such persons to correct, it means you should be within the 2 days. So it means that if you take the risk to make mistakes and then hope that the EC will detect these mistakes within the nomination period for you to come and correct, and they don't detect these mistakes, if they detect after the nomination period, they may still use it against you. So you cannot say that, why didn't you call us to come and correct the mistakes? But I'm saying that for genuine mistakes, the EC should be flexible enough to correct them. But for illegalities, unconstitutional things, and fraudulent acts, it should be difficult for the EC to say that we're giving you another opportunity for you to correct them. That is how I see it. But if you're flexible enough, for the parliamentary side, it's a bit flexible and easy. For instance, what we did after getting, you need 20 persons to sign your form. 2 proposers and then the 18 supporters, and such persons should also give all their details. So what we did was to go to the EC on the first day of the nomination, presented our nomination documents, quadruplicate. The EC went through and made sure that everybody who had subscribed indeed had his name in the register, and then everything was okay. If they had detected any anomaly, we still had opportunity to go and correct it, because we sat before them, went through together, and then because it was 2 days, the first day, if we saw the mistake, we could have corrected it. But if you send your nomination, let's say 10 minutes to 5, and then they take it, they go through, and they are not even able to finish because you need to beat time. Later on, if they come out and say that if those who subscribe for you, 1, are not registered voters, 2, have done double registration, they are on the multiple registration list, or 3, they have endorsed other persons, then obviously you have a problem, because the law does not allow you to do those things.
In putting together the administrative setup for perhaps looking at filling the forms and getting the right people, etc. For the political parties, what do you do?
Well, as in the first place, for parliamentary, the candidates and the party executives should be serious about the form. The candidates should read the constitution, read the laws, and then make sure that every portion that he's filling, he understands it. If he doesn't, he should consult. Then the party itself, for instance, I get the constituency executives to endorse my form for me. We make sure that they have voter ID card, they've done the right thing. So there should be a concerted effort to make sure that everything has been done according to the constitution and according to law. And there should be some due diligence to make sure that, of course, some of us are experienced. This is the third time I'm filling the form. Sometimes I just have to refer to the previous form and make sure that I'm really consistent with what I've done.
We have on the line a political science lecturer with the political science department of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Dr. Edward Brenya is a regular panelist on our show as well as on the platform. But a very good morning to you. Now, particularly, what are the implications, whether positive or not, overall on the elections, if this holds, if we have only 4 candidates on the ballot paper contesting the December 7 elections?
Good morning. The line is a bit faint. I believe you are asking about the implication of the actions taken by the EC.
Definitely, sir.
Yes. Good morning once again. I think that the implications are clear. This is an institution that has decided to accept itself and apply the rules guiding its activities as an institution. The political parties, since the assumption of office by the new Electoral Commissioner, has been speaking. They've been asking this lady about how the Electoral Commission would apply the law guiding its office. And I believe that this is exactly what the lady did yesterday, what the Electoral Commission led by the lady did. Sort of, the Commission has shown to Ghanaians and the Electoral Commission that when the rules and the laws are applied to the left, this is exactly how it looks like. Some of these candidates have made that they will go to court. I've listened to some of the arguments that are being made by the candidates. To me, many of the arguments focus on morality. Some are even arguing that the predecessor of Charlotte Osei normally would have called them to make the necessary correction before the nomination is accepted. All those things are issues that borders on morality. I think what the Electoral Commission says is legality. And when they go to court, the issues that will be looked at will be legality. Whether or not the Electoral Commission will control whether it acted unconstitutional. If only what the Electoral Commission did is legality, then I don't see any serious implications. Probably what they are likely to get is a strengthened democracy, where in future, when people decide to submit nomination form, they will sit down and look at whether or not they met all the processes. And that goes to strengthen our democracy. I don't see the probability of the electoral calendar being affected because of the individuals that are going to court. I believe strongly that should they go to court, that the judicial process will hasten the process and try to educate as fast as possible. The majority of these cases will be thrown out of court, and it will not affect the electoral calendar.
Now, the other concern, if not even a concern at all, is that those suspended candidates lead political parties, and the political parties in themselves also have some following. Albeit you may argue that over the last couple of elections, they've not gotten the percentages for you to say they are that very critical, but they are still having some level of following. How does that reflect on the political space and perhaps that level of enthusiasm of that section of the voter population towards the main election we're about to convene?
I think it all depends on what happens between now and the day of election. These political parties have choices to make. Some of them, well, now we know that many are saying they are going to court. Should they go to court? And should their moral argument fly in a way that the court decides or requests the Electoral Commission to reinstate them, accept their nomination, then they come back and then their supporters or sympathizers can't achieve what they hope to achieve. And on the other hand, should the case stand at the date, they have other options. They might decide to align with other political parties so that they ask their supporters to vote for those political parties that they think probably share a bit of their vision, or the individual voters would have to vote based on their assessment of the three political parties and the independent candidates. There's going to be the likelihood of some of them who may decide, if they feel strongly committed to their political party, who may decide that they will not vote at all. And what we're going to see is a reduction in the percentage of valid vote cast. But I think that all this will play out between what happened between today and the day of election.
All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Edward Brainer is a political science lecturer with the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. We still also have in the studio the chairman of Parliament's Subsidiary Legislation Committee, Osebun Suamwa, and Obi Amwa is also a member of Parliament for Ikuapem South. But then that brings us to the wider question of if the rules have been set, or perhaps the way we have them in the legislation, how do the parties go about conforming to them?
But as I said, you will have to, in the first place, the candidates and the party hierarchy should know what the law is. Who qualifies to even stand, let's say, as a parliamentary candidate or presidential candidate. The parties go through this during primaries. And I can tell you, even for MPP, after primaries, we had a committee which had to vet every candidate. Because you don't want a situation where you would have endorsed the candidate and the candidate will not be qualified under the constitution. For instance, does he hold any other citizenship apart from being a Ghanaian? That is the ground for disqualification. So sometimes the candidate may not even be forthcoming as to whether he doesn't have any dual nationality. So the party has to go behind to investigate that. Remember, it happened to MPP when even after getting a candidate in Parliament, Adamusa Kandi, the court ruled that he was not qualified to stand. So we even have a committee that goes through this whole process. But the Electoral Affairs Committee of the party and the Legal Affairs Committee and then even the Campaign Committee, they are so involved in this that they make sure we comply with the Constitution and we comply with the relevant laws. And then when it comes to nomination, they make sure that the right people endorse our nomination for us not to fall in this kind of situation.
Well, the flag bearers in their contest, the political party will say those are their flag bearers or their candidates they've elected. They may have been disqualified, but they could still fill their parliamentary candidates if they want to, and if they qualify.
Certainly. The nomination for the presidential elections is different from nomination for parliamentary elections. The party, as a party, endorses candidates. So if for any reason the presidential candidate of a party has been disqualified, it doesn't stop the party to have filled parliamentary candidates, unless of course at the parliamentary level too there's a problem which would make them ineligible. So even though the party may not have a presidential candidate, they still can fill parliamentary candidates.
The other aspect of it, and very much in relation to it, is once the the presidential candidate is the front, is the face of the campaign. From your experience, how does that have damping the morale as far as the whole campaign strategy for a political party is?
Well, for a serious political party, obviously you would want to market your presidential candidates and then market your parliamentary candidates, and then also give the impression to the world that you are in a position to dominate parliament or form the next government. So for a serious political party, obviously you need your presidential candidate and your parliamentary candidates to be able to carry your message across and to convince the world that you want to form the next government. But for some, if they are young and they are not that organized, they may hope that even without a presidential candidate, they may secure some seats to also tell their story or to tell the whole world that they also matter when it comes to the political affairs of this country. So certainly, that's why I'm saying that for some parties, I'm a bit surprised and that they are in such a situation. And I mentioned the PPP. PPP appears very organized. Their presidential candidates is all over the place. So ideally, you would think that they will do due diligence and then cross this hurdle. If they don't have a presidential candidate now, we need to see how that will affect their fortunes when it comes to their parliamentary elections. It means they have to adopt their own strategy and see how, in the absence of the presidential candidate, they can still campaign and secure some seats in parliament. Obviously, I don't think that on the ground they hope to be the majority party in parliament.
And lastly, how does this in itself, in terms of the decision that has been taken by the Electoral Commission, puts the party in a certain stead of, let's say, going to court and getting some remedies? Would they be able to get some remedies?
Well, we appear to be heading towards a certain crisis. In the first place, you know, there's already a matter in court about the filing fees. Thankfully, the court tried to resolve it by not placing injunction on the whole process. So even though it delayed a bit, now the EC has been able to clear that hurdle of accepting the filing fees. Now, if any party should go to court and secure any further injunction, it's going to affect the whole calendar and timetable for the elections. And it's something that we should be very cautious about. Now, as to going to court, the Constitution allows anybody to go to court. How strong your case is how you come out of court. There are some, you may not, if you ask me, if you were to come for any legal advice from me, I may say that you may not need to waste your time going to court, especially if you haven't complied with the constitutional requirement of being a candidate. What you're going to say in court will not make any difference. But if for clerical errors, like you're supposed to fill your form and indicate your voter ID number, and if there are 10 delegates, you only gave 9 delegates and you left 1 out. It's an error, all right, and ideally the EC should even be able to detect it and tell you that come and correct it. You understand? It's not fatal. You would have complied with everything. If you listen to the PPP situation, it's one person filling a form in the western region and the central region. It means you would have not. It means you would have not met the requirement. The requirement says 2 persons per district. So if you count the 432 and you don't get a 432, it means you don't have met the requirement. That is different from one person filling it and then making a mistake with his voter ID. So all those. I
wanted us to do something on energy, but you launched your manifesto over the weekend, Monmouth Rally, and we covered it here.
Very historic occasion.
Yeah. And
I've been in this party from day one, and I think that what we did last day was one of the best.
To get all the people down there was massive.
Yeah, we asked for support. MPP has support. MPP any day can gather support. But even beyond that, the event itself, I mean, the quality of what we presented, I was really happy with it. What we said was that we were offering solutions. It's not just complaining about what is wrong, but we tell you what is wrong and tell you how we want to fix it. And it's in various sectors. We were just scratching the surface. I'm sure at the appropriate time we'll pick them one by one. For instance, local governance is a very huge area for me, and I think that we should devote time to talk about how we run local government in this country. Thankfully, the PPP has even set itself some very ambitious targets. Within 2 years of coming to power, DCs should be elected. So that we are targeting a situation where by the next DC Assembly elections, DCs will also be going for elections. And that's our goal. If Ghanaians give us the mandate, it's something that we are going to make sure that we hit by 2019 when the EC is ready for the district assembly elections. Anybody who wants to run a district should also be elected through the process. It will mean constitutional amendment. It will mean looking at the law to make sure that we comply with the law. We are ready to do it within 2 years. That's why we've given our sector. Now, beyond that, if you look at urbanization, I mean, if you say Accra is your capital, it's an eyesore. Sanitation situation is so bad. Congestion is so bad. We are creating slums. Now, if you say, can you imagine that we have the reputation that we are the second dirtiest in Africa and the seventh dirtiest in the world? It's all because our local governance system has broken down. So I think we will have time to talk about all these things as far as the manifesto. I don't want this easy matter to come and just crowd out what we are offering the people of Ghana. I think the opportunity will come for us to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for passing through this morning. And Osei Bunsuamwa is a member of Parliament for Ikuapem South, but also chairman of Parliament's Subsidiary Legislation Committee. He's also a lawyer. That also gives us a lot more room to discuss the number of things that we did. As far as the Electoral Commission's announcement that it had disqualified at least 13 of those individuals who had intended to contest as presidential candidates in the next elections. And we know it's going to be convened on December 7, 2016. But of course, we also are your election headquarters. Just in case you want to communicate with us, please make sure you do so. Always make sure you use the hashtag ElectionHQ on all our social media platforms. And you can find us on Facebook, Join News on TV. On Twitter, we are at Join News on TV. And also, we are also found on YouTube and on WhatsApp through the number 0560 800,000. We have to take a break. When we come back, the great conversation we've been waiting for is with a former football player from England, and they are doing the activation, making sure that they go around countries and Africa with the FA Cup, and thankfully we have it in our studio here. My team Chelsea, that I support at least in England, they've won a couple of times, and we want to also blow our horns a little. We're taking a break. When we come back, the FA Cup discussion this day. I'm telling you.